episode of Two Jiujiteiras. I'm Babs.
I'm Katie.
And today we have a guest dialing in today. We have a repeat guest, Professor Alex MacKinnon here from Quantum Jiu-Jitsu. Last time we had him on, we kind of were talking about the C4C training. It has now happened, and now we're here to talk about it. Thank you, Alex, for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the course was amazing. I was really impressed with all different aspects of it, but I like that they emphasized a lot of the duty of care through that.
It's a big piece of it. Like they talk about optics often, right? About, people having their cell phones out, and all that stuff getting reported back, right? Whether it's just in the media or whether it's like through your superiors and how that stuff gets reported back. I think it's, like you said, having duty of care in the back of your mind, no matter what type of technique you're performing, I think is a very important aspect of it. So it's important to highlight it for sure. So were you tired after the event?
Oh, man. I remember day one, Patrick and I were starting, and they kept talking about tempo, like, all right. And we were so geared up, and we were so excited to be there. And they kept saying, just take it slow, And Pat and I are like, man, I want to get into this. By day 4, you can definitely see why, there's that progression of, slowly building up. Because, 8-hour days of training, it was intense.
And I just wanted to interrupt. Do you folks want to share about the C4C just as an intro again, just for anyone who's dialing in?
That's probably a good idea.
What's C4C training?
Yeah, Alex, I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, so the Code 4 Combat, the C4C Police Jiu-Jitsu training is created by Chad Lyman down in Vegas. Chad is a very reputable law enforcement officer. He still is active duty down there. So he takes a lot of what he's learned and what he's used in the field and blends it with the jiu-jitsu training and has created this amazing program. And it's not just him. He has a lot of people under him too that help contribute to the curriculum. But Chad is kind of like the driving force behind it and the head of the organization. So very similar for those that are listening or watching, similar to Gracie Survival Tactics, very law enforcement centric. But it's their own brand of it, and a lot of it, like I said, is based off of real world experience of what they know works and what they feel is effective. So so they've branded it as C4C Police Jiu-Jitsu. There are 5 levels, and I got my level 4 certification last year when I was in Toronto, and then I believe, Katie, you just got your level 4 certification from this past event. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. So the certification, for those curious, allows it's meant. The course itself is meant for instructors. It's not meant for practitioners necessarily. That said, they're welcome to attend. A lot of practitioners did attend, but the certification is to basically say, hey, you're able to teach up to this level of technique. And the first 3 levels are heavily rooted in jiu-jitsu. Typical clinch work, grappling work, things like that, how to control someone on the ground. The level 4 really brings in some of the more like the weapon training and knife defense and things like that. So if you're a brown belt or black belt in jiu-jitsu and you've done some of the weapons training on day 4 there, like we did, that's usually what tends to lead to a level 4 certification. So a very intense 4 days. You mentioned how you wanted to get going at the start. There were groups there, and we were laughing as instructors. We were looking around the groups, and you could see some groups. It was day 1, and it was the first couple drills we were doing. And rather than just like a nice flow, they were going for it. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, you wait until this afternoon. They're already going to be tired, and they're going to be sore tomorrow morning for day 2. And I'm like, they don't realize they have 3 more days of this, and it's 8 hours plus rolling at lunchtimes. So it was intense. So I'm glad you went through it. It's a humbling experience for sure.
It really was.
Were you one of the ones that went hard, or did you go slow?
Well, I paid attention. I figured the instructors were giving us that cue for a reason. So we were listening, but we were both just we were just so eager to be there. And I feel like that was kind of the general vibe that I got with like the training was people were just really happy to be there and were
Hmm.
enthusiastic. And like, you know, I've been in courses before for you, like training use of force, and people are just like hauling butt. Like they're just like, oh man, like not this again. But I feel like the way the instructors conducted the training, I felt safe. Like I didn't feel like there was going to be any allowance for like meathead stupidity. So I didn't feel like there was that risk of injury, which I think is typically, and we talked in our last podcast that you were on about like what holds officers back from like additional training and stuff. And I think that's part of it is just that fear of getting injured and not being able to do the job itself, let alone
Yeah.
prepare for those instances of use of force. But yeah, I felt like it was a really good atmosphere for training.
We actually just got a because we try to bring that level of atmosphere, or that type of atmosphere. We try to bring it over to Quantum as well. We just got a nice Google review of a guy who had visited with his girlfriend or wife. I'm not sure if they're married or not. But he had said it was like a nice, welcoming environment. There was no meatheads. No one was looking to injure each other. And that, like in general, if you're running a school or running a program, that's definitely the vibe you want to bring because, like you said, there should be a zero tolerance for it, really, right?
Yeah.
That said, we did have one or two injuries throughout the week, but that was during the live training at lunchtime. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was sad to see that because one of the guys injured their ankle pretty bad, but it
Oh.
wasn't during the use of force techniques. It was we rolled at lunchtime. I didn't miss a roll, like lunchtime roll. It was that was so you did you went you trained all morning. Lunchtime you prepared me well for what to expect. In just grab a banana and then live
start
rolls
rolling.
and yeah, and then back at it for the afternoon. I was disgusting.
Yeah.
I
I
was
think
so
everyone
sweaty
was
and
by the end of
gross.
each day.
Yeah. It's like I really
I
looked
actually had to
forward to
do
that shower
laundry.
when I got back.
Oh, big time, big time. I only brought three gis, two gis, I can't remember, and all my no gi gear. But by the time the day three had ended, I needed to do laundry at the hotel because like I burned through everything I brought.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow.
yeah, Tuesday I think it was. So it started Monday, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is what the course was. So
Yeah.
on Tuesday we had done the 4 hours in the morning. We had done the lunchtime rolls. We did the 4 hours in the afternoon, and then Joel, Jacquard, myself, and two other guys drove to Charlottetown BJJ and did a class there that night.
Yeah.
And we trained with a bunch of people there. So I was dead on Tuesday. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And we still had 2 days left. And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So it was good though. It's healthy for the ego to push your body a little bit and see what you can do. So
Yeah.
Well, then this one comes back home and goes to a class the next day. I was like, what?
Yeah.
After seeing all your stories, I'm like, oh my goodness.
I think I did too the next day because I caught John Kelly's noon class, and
And
then
then,
Patrick and I went and shared a little bit of the stuff that we learned. Yeah. For
tougher than I am. I let Steve teach my Friday class that week. I was
did
like,
you?
I'm like, I'm taking Friday off. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah, no, that was it was a great time. So I really liked a lot of the communication that during the course. I found that they were very inclusive. So I think it was Ryan Lawler that was made a point to say men and women, which as a law enforcement officer, I definitely appreciate because I just find that oftentimes we just get grouped in with the guys, and it's like, man, like we exist, like. So he was great for that, but he also acknowledged a lot of the modifications you can do for the course if you're an older officer, because I'm definitely experiencing that now too. As you age, you know, you're not able to get up as quickly as you used to before. So the modifications that he suggested for that were phenomenal. It's
Age
good.
and size, right? He
Right.
very good at giving like variety of the technique or alternatives to maybe something we were doing. Where if you're too short, this is probably what you're going to do. If you're a little bit too, I don't know, sore in the joints, or if you find this too difficult and you're not flexible enough, here's a modification that you can do, right? So it's because as instructors, we would be off on the side and we would know what we were going to teach, but if you saw every time a technique was taught, all the instructors, myself included, we would look at the other instructors and say, any top ups? And it was a chance for the other instructors to bring in additional information that maybe I wasn't aware of, or a different perspective that I might not have thought of when presenting the technique, right? Like sometimes you get very narrow minded when you're showing a technique and like, do this step, this step, this step. But, when we ask for top ups from the other instructors, they'll be like, hey, don't forget, if the person's a little bit, not flexible and you can't reach and do this, you could do this. And it allowed the group to have a variety of options for any given technique. And they repeated all week what was it? It's not the way, it's a way
Right. I like
on
that.
how to do yeah, I think it's a great way to approach it. Yeah.
And I think they set a really good example just with doing that top up. It was a very team led mentality versus, a lot of times you go into use of force courses and stuff, and it's like, it's my way. This is what I'm saying. This is how to do it. And then, it's like when we talked about the, like the dog pile. Instead they were focusing on communication with your group. Like if you're in an altercation with someone and you're first hands-on and then people are arriving, they should be looking to you for, what do you need? How can I help? So you're looking for work. It's like, somebody arrives, it's like, can you grab the legs? And it's more communication, and it makes it way more effective. So
It's the communication piece they really focus on too, right? Like, and I enjoyed that as well, because they'll even demonstrate in the live technique demonstrations on, hey, I've got the arm, can you get the legs? And they encourage you to say that with your partners to almost create the habit of starting the communication once contact begins and another officer arrives. I think they did a really good job of I almost want to say acting. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like this is how it should be presented, and this is how it should be done in a live altercation. And you grab the shoulder and you're trying to convince someone to go down. It's like down, 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 down. Put your hands out. Put your hands out. Put your hands out. Like stay in your belly. Stay in your belly. Someone come help. Grab his legs. And it's like having one person kind of dictate what to happen. Because like you said, if you're the first person on scene and someone else is coming in, like you said, they're looking to you for that information. So to be able to direct them and help them, and be in a position to be able to help them and direct them, right? That was the other thing was,
yeah,
you know, that's why they focus on the knee on belt line as opposed to going to mount, because you want to be up in a ready position so that if someone's approaching, if it's not a fellow officer, right? If it's maybe someone's friend that doesn't like what's happening, at least you can disengage. You can have your head up on a swivel to be able to look around. So, yeah, they do a good job of presenting that. All those guys, Sean, Ryan, and Matt, they're good guys. They were at the Toronto event that I had done the year prior, so it was me and them, and Mike Bland and Chad Lyman were the other two instructors. Chad was only there for the first two and a half days, I think. Mike led a lot of it with us doing a lot of the help, like walking around and helping and stuff like that. So this is the first event that those three guys and myself actually had a chance to lead from the start, I believe. I don't know if
nice.
they've done other courses out in Ontario, but yeah, the goal is to get Mike Bland up or Chad, one of the two. And Mike ended up getting double booked. There was another C4C course that was happening down in the States at the same time. And Chad, I believe, had visa issues, so wasn't able to make it up.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, I think it was just a renewal issue. He hadn't renewed his visa or something like that, and so he had to go through the process of getting it renewed. So because of that, he wasn't able to make it up. So, but I think they did a great job with the course. I
I think
think,
you all did excellent instruction. It was great. I loved the emphasis, like ineffective use of force looks like excessive use of force. It's
yeah,
like, it's like that makes so much sense when you're in that position and you're frustrated and you're trying to get someone under control, and if
punching the hell out of them.
and if and if there isn't that communication, people are working against each other. So
Yeah.
oftentimes, not always,
Well,
but
well, they even said some of the officers have had experience where their fellow officers have handcuffed them.
right.
It's like they're trying to get the cuffs out. You're trying to get the hand. It's like you don't know whose hand is whose, and they get the cuff on the wrong hand. It's like, what's going on here? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's intense. I thought you offered a lot of really good information as far as like the difference between like sports jiu-jitsu and training for use of force, like even the defensive stand-up, like having that helmet protect from, like I've incorporated that now in my just regular jiu-jitsu, because when you're training for sport, you're taking it for granted that people aren't trying to kick you in the face.
Yeah.
But that becomes that muscle memory that in a use of force situation, you want to know what you're doing. So,
Yeah. We do that often when I'm teaching just regular classes here in town. I don't often, like sometimes I'll start with like just a typical like 50-50 grip, like collar sleeve, you know what I mean? Standing up,
mm-hmm,
like a traditional judoka style stand up. But a lot of the times, especially if we're doing some type of clinch work, whether it's gi or no gi, I'll say like, someone has open hand slaps, like you're just covering up and you're getting to the clinch. So it gives them at least some type of reason, like why am I in the clinch? You're not just clinching to clinch for the sake of doing jiu-jitsu. You're clinching because you don't want to get your head knocked off.
right.
And so I usually lead into that when I do stand up at the clinch. It's almost always some type of like striking component, but that's just like my roots of my jiu-jitsu are very self-defense oriented, which caters to the whole C4C police jiu-jitsu thing, I think, quite well.
Mm-hmm.
It lends to it in a nice way. So yeah, always self-defense in the back of my mind. Even when I'm teaching side control or something, it's like, okay, we're here. Why are we here? Maybe I get hit and knocked down, or maybe if it was jiu-jitsu, I got tripped and they landed in side control or something like that. And then I also explain, okay, what am I doing with my head? It's like, well, from a jiu-jitsu perspective, you can have your head here to avoid chokes and stuff, but there's another reason. Like maybe I have my head here because this guy's trying to throw strikes. So I always, at least in my classes, the ones I teach, I often mention strikes because really two reasons. One, it's nice to have that root in self-defense so people understand why they're in that position, right? Because that's really what I think jiu-jitsu was meant for to begin with. And two, it even if you're in a competitive scenario, there's nothing to say when the ref turns his head that someone's not going to be dirty and do something malicious. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And that happens all that you watch competitions. It's like, how did the ref not see that? And it's like, he just kind of dropped his elbow on that guy. It's like, well, if that guy was ready for that type of scenario, and maybe in their head, they're thinking, I shouldn't have to be ready for that because it's a competition. But man, people are dirty. They do dirty
Yeah.
things. So it's nice to have that mentality no matter what setting you're in, just so that, you're not going to get your bell rung.
Yeah. I also liked that the emphasis on acknowledging the gear that we wear. For the shrimps, like having to get your hip really high in order to clear from the ground, because it is a whole nother situation when you're wearing a vest and a duty belt with a ton of stuff on it to be able to move. It's not the same as being on the mats
With just
in your
your
no-gi
spats
gear.
or your
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big difference.
Well, like, yeah, because you can have like I almost call it like a lazy shrimp where your hip almost drags on the floor, but really you want your hip up and tuck that elbow in so that you can get ready to bring yourself back up to an elbow and bring yourself up to a hand so that you can start getting into like a technical stand up of some sort, right?
Right.
And it's a different type of warm up that wouldn't exist without that mentality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I like it a lot. It's a lot of good points, and I think they do a good job of breaking it down day by day. They had like Ryan had a list of techniques that were we had goals of like what we wanted to cover over the 4 days, and so the first couple days actually we were flying through it. The group in PEI, and I think it's because we had so many scattered higher level belts. The group in PEI picked it up so much faster than the group in Toronto.
Oh, really?
It was incredible. Even the clinch, like, going side to side with the clinch, it was really impressive how everyone just kind of like you all gelled. Everyone was just doing the technique and then you switch partners and it was no problem. Everyone just kept doing it. Whereas in Toronto, it's like some people really had trouble with the mechanics of flowing with the clinch work when someone's trying to dig for double underhooks. And it
Oh,
was
okay. I
yeah,
find as an
it's
instructor, like when I've taught like a women's class and stuff, just pummeling, getting them to move upper body and lower body at this like simultaneously is a challenge to get people to
yeah.
swim. You're moving your feet too. You're getting that entry step as you swim. But I did notice that a lot of the people there were, and I think what 3/4 of the group trained jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah,
It was
probably.
it was
I
a
think
there was
yeah.
a like a large number, but
That's awesome.
for the people who didn't, like they were still pretty picking it up pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah. Couple of guys there, a little bit more traditional, that hadn't done a lot of like martial arts training, but you could tell they've done some use of force training.
Yeah.
They've definitely been part of the programs in the past, but to really understand why you're doing something, I think they really enjoyed, because that was a big piece of the presentation of the technique, is why are we doing this? Why is this safe? Why does this work?
Hmm.
And I think it translates well to anyone of any level, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I'm just taking a look here. That are you a professional or are you just in the profession was a pretty good one too. That I forget who Ryan gave credit to for that quote, but
That's a good
it's
quote. I forgot about that one.
yeah, no, that's intense when you think about it, because there's like you do see people who are enthusiastic and wanting to be there for that training and learning a better way to conduct themselves for use of force. Because I don't think anyone's happy to be in a position where you're having to defend yourself from somebody, but
Yeah.
to be able to do so in an effective manner, care and control of the person that you're having to grab onto, and being a professional about it. It's pretty good.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Are you a professional, or are you in the profession? And it's funny, when I drive around town and I see cops in the cars, I almost make a purpose to like stare at the car to be like, "Do you come to class?" It's like, and it's like sometimes I see them. It's like I know them. It's like they come to class. Good, that's what I want to see. And it's like, but then you look around. It's like I've never seen you at any of my classes. It's like you know. And then it's like in the back of my head, it's like, oh, you're just
You're just
you're
in
just
the
in the
profession.
profession. Yeah, yeah.
That's
You're
good.
so judgy.
You'll have to
Yeah,
get
and
like
it's like
stickers to like start sticking them as you.
I know. So it's like it's funny. I quietly judge as I'm driving around and I see cops in their cars. It's like I'm watching you. It's like I haven't seen you at a class before. It's like you should come to class. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like you said, a lot of them are nervous about getting injured. But it's to if you have a culture that allows for good training without injury or minimal injury, because I think it's hard to avoid it completely. I think it happens to anyone, or can happen to anyone. As long as you have a good environment for it, you should be able to slowly start changing the way some of these people think. And I think that's the hardest part, is to create it's still early days. And I say that like knowing that, we had how many people, almost 20, 30 people at PEI, and I
Mm-hmm.
think there was 60 people in Ontario when we did it last year. There was 61 or something like that, and 63 in total, and only 2 were non-LEO.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's it those groups 10 years ago would have been 5 or 10 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just shows the growth of it over the past several years, but it's still early days. We're still at the beginning of like a culture change to try to get some of these departments to pick up regular grappling training,
Yeah.
right? Whether you want to call it jujitsu or whatever. To be honest, I would be happy if I saw a cop doing even a wrestling class. Like, just get in there, get used to grabbing a hold of someone so you're not so nervous, right?
Right.
Because that was one of the biggest things when I ran the law enforcement workshop here in town. One of the biggest things I saw was some of the guys that were, man, they were yoked, big dudes, but when they grabbed someone, they were like shaking. Not that they were nervous, but you could tell they were very uncomfortable with what they were doing. Without that familiarity, yeah, you're like, you know, I don't want to say a spazzy white belt, but you're like, how white belts, when they grab a hold of each other and they're
They're
like really
breathing
intensely
heavy.
holding, breathing heavy, and it's like you get that from people, even law enforcement officers who don't have any experience. They get there's that nervous stiffness, and they just like it's like, dude, relax your arms. It's okay. It's everything's gonna be all right. Like you were just practicing. So
Yeah. And you talk about the big dudes. It's like I find in so many of these spaces, like you see, I think there was 30 people, 3 of which were female, 1 of which paid out of pocket, at least 1 of which. So you're seeing a lot of these agencies are throwing their biggest guys. Like it's normally always a dude. It would be really nice to see them support more of their female officers and sending more. Like I feel like when you teach jujitsu, you're usually teaching to the lowest common denominator, so the person
yeah,
who has the least experience. And they're saying with law enforcement, like they send like their biggest dudes. It's like, send the smaller people. Like, send some of your female officers so that they're learning these opportunities too, and showing that you're capable, even if you're small as a woman or smaller dude. I'd like to see that kind of a shift for these training opportunities
It,
as well.
it's sad that the agencies don't push it more. I don't know why they don't. We actually had a situation, this is about 2 years ago now, where there was it was a female officer who didn't act. Um, I don't want, what do I want to say? Quickly enough or with enough urgency when one of her partners was being attacked. And it's because she didn't have the confidence. She didn't have the training for it. So some of the ERT guys brought her in. There was a group of like 3 or 4 guys and maybe 1 or 2 girls, excuse me, brought her into quantum to do almost like a private lesson and do group scenarios with her to try to bring up her confidence levels, because
I love that.
she was, you could tell even when we were doing the drills, it was very foreign to her of like how to pin someone on the ground and how to grab a hold of someone. And so it's but again, that was the officers and her taking it upon themselves to improve themselves. It's not the agency, it's not the higher ups aren't pushing for it enough or funding it enough for anyone, women included, but no one's getting funding. It's sad. It's I think there's only a couple there that really had the agency pay for it. So I mean, what does that say about how much they actually care about duty of care, effective use of control, or use of force, when they're not pushing for it? It makes it tough. So like I said, there's still a big culture change that needs to happen, but we're doing what we can, right? Especially when it comes to C4C police jiu-jitsu. It's like there's really only 2 big brands of use of force out there for law enforcement. You have, like I said, you have Gracie Survival Tactics and you have C4C police jiu-jitsu. Those are probably the 2 leading ones. And when one of the biggest leading use of force groups comes to the East Coast to give a workshop, you would hope that local law enforcement agencies would be all behind that and really push to get people involved. But it falls on deaf ears, and they're just like, yeah, our once a year training or once a quarter training is enough. And it's like, yeah, it's not at all,
Mm.
because the ones that are there consistently will tell you it's not enough, right?
And
So
with what you were saying with the female officer, I find so often there is this sexism within any workplace. I mean, I'm sure it's the same at McDonald's as it is with law enforcement, where it's like, oh, like we want to remove our female officers from danger if we're able to step in and kind of take over. But it's doing a disservice. We're in the role. We're expected to be able to handle those situations. Or that's how I feel as an officer. Is there's an expectation that I'm able and capable of doing my job. So
yeah,
for male officers to continually, not to put it all on them, but like that sexism in the workplaces of keeping women safe, and the men will go handle it. It's like, man, like that's got to change.
and it's
That's
not a reality. It's just not. Sometimes
You don't get
maybe
to
you're
pick
coming
and
around a
choose.
corner. Yeah, exactly. And you see a scenario. It's like, oh, I'm just going to wait for backup. It's like, no, not necessarily. It's like sometimes like you have an opportunity to be engaged in a situation, and you should feel comfortable protecting yourself, right?
Right.
Like, not to say you need to dominate someone, but can you survive a situation, especially long enough until backup comes, right? And I think that's an important piece of it. Is you don't necessarily need to be dominant, but you definitely need to know how to not get your head knocked off.
Yeah.
So Ryan had a great example of when he said the guy had pinned him up against the wall. He had a chest mounted taser and he had his firearm, and the guy reached for both at the same time. So what do you do? You know what I mean? And it's like, how do you handle yourself in those situations? And it's not like he was expecting that to happen that day, I'm sure. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you need to be able to respond. So whether it was him or if it was a female officer, it doesn't matter who it is. You need to be ready for those situations.
The
So yeah, it
unexpected.
was yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
He had
it's to
some
prepare
really
for that.
great examples. I feel like he's been through
he's been through a lot, I think.
Yeah.
So
I really appreciated too. During one of the scenarios, he expressed that like it made him emotional when he was even just teaching it because he had experience in it. I just thought that was really good to express the fact that like sometimes training use of force, if you've experienced certain things, can bring up those those feelings of like So I have nothing bad to say about the course. I loved every second of it. I thought it was amazing. Great to build rapport with other agencies. Like I found, a lot of times like with all these different like agencies, they don't always mix very often. So it was
mhm.
nice to, we were working with conservation, we were working with corrections, we were working with all these.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was really nice to kind of build rapport with everybody and kind of see some faces, and it was awesome.
One of our buddies is part of the DFO. Um, and we always joke about him. His biggest job is to arrest fish or something like that. So,
I love it.
so you're gonna practice this on all the fish you catch there, yeah. So if Denny's listening, we're talking about you,
Yeah.
Denny. So
Oh man, he's awesome. I used to work with
yeah,
Denny years ago, and he's got a really good attitude.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a guy who hadn't done a lot of jujitsu training over the years. I think hockey and his kids took a lot of priority, but as they got older and were looking for something else, he tried jujitsu. Then the kids tried jujitsu, and he has been all in for the past year and a half, 2 years. These guys train. I'm in their group chat. They have a separate group chat because a lot of them train out in Shediac,
Okay.
and they train at every morning. You see a text saying 4:45 gym, 6 o'clock jujitsu, and it's always like, "Yep, see you there, see you there, see you there." So they have a dedicated group who hit the gym at 4:45 every morning, and then do jujitsu at 6 a.m.
That's
That's
So
amazing.
awesome.
yeah,
Goals,
I can't do
aspiring
that.
goals.
Yeah.
I'm up
I
at
can't
that
do that.
time, but I can't leave my house yet. Again, littles.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah.
Someday. So, but man, he's got small kids too, and so a lot of the times, actually, he's even brought some of his smaller kids to go do the workouts early morning, especially during the summer times, right?
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, he's got them out. He'll put pictures up on his Instagram page of like them trying to do like I don't know kipping pull-ups and stuff like that, or like
Yeah.
it's incredible. So the fact that he gets them up at 4:45 to go do a workout with them, I'm sure
Yeah.
builds some character for sure, especially being that young, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, it's great to see it. We have a home gym, so just getting up and throughout the day, and if it's middle of the day and they're up, they'll come down and watch. And sometimes they have like little tiny like 2 pound weights, and my littlest will be like, strength training.
Yeah.
He'll start lifting the weights.
It's really good. I think it really instills like a healthy attitude, and just kind of puts health at the focus for
They copy
starting
what
at a
they see
really
their
young
parents
age.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
that's it, right?
Smoking darts, and anyway, I'm just joking.
Listen,
I'm
kid,
an
life is
80.
rough.
I'm an 80s kid, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, so am I.
Actually, it's funny. I saw a meme the other day that said something to that effect of like, today's generation will never know that the world actually used to smell like cigarettes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Back in the
We
day.
used to have one of those vents in our house, or like it was like one of those little tiny, like it was like a fan, and it was meant to suck in the cigarette smoke and filter it and put out good air. I just remember always sitting beside it and doing the Darth Vader voice and stuff like that. But like I grew up having cigarette smoke in like, around the house, you know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
Yeah.
at a very young age. My parents stopped when I was born, but I say they stopped. I still have memories of having those things around. So it's like their friends smoked, you know what I mean? Like everyone smoked in the 80s.
Oh my
So
Yeah.
gosh, everywhere's.
yeah.
Everywhere's. Like in stores, department stores. Like I
Yeah.
remember walking with my uncle and him smoking
Rocking.
away as we're walking by clothes. I'm like thinking back like that wasn't a good idea, but
Yeah. So
It
yeah,
reminds me,
we're evolving in a good way.
yes.
oh, for sure, for sure. When I had lived in Japan for 2 years, right? And so for the time I was there, I didn't realize like how little North America in general, I guess, like Canada, especially in the East Coast, don't smoke anymore. Because when I was over there, they have vending machines with cigarettes. Like everyone, if you go to a bar, everyone's having cigarettes. It almost felt like the 80s.
Oh wow.
Wow.
I'm
Bless me.
surprised. Bless you.
We'll cut that out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm actually surprised. Japan is so formal. I just picture it as being really formal in their.
No, they all smoke.
Oh, I'm,
Yeah, they all smoke.
wow,
So
that's
yeah,
neat.
the world still smells of cigarette smoke over there.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just curious about like the preparations for this training, like this week-long training. Like, what do I know you were instructing in that? Like, how much work does it take to run these things?
It's a lot. I'll do video review of some of the technique even before I'll go in. You know what I mean? Just to make sure I have it in the back of my head of like what I want to see or how I want it presented. Because um, Joel Jacquard says this often. Joel's a good friend of mine through the Halifax Jiu-Jitsu Society, and he will say often it's like it's not necessarily he'll show you the good technique and the cool techniques, but it didn't come from him. It's like he learned it from someone that's, possibly better than him or who has more experience, and then he will try to take that and learn it and replicate it in the gym, you know what I mean, and make it his own. But where it came from is not necessarily him, you know what I mean, and he gives a lot of credit to the people that have helped him be as good as he is. And I like that approach, and I think it's very similar to myself, where it's like I think I have good capabilities of being able to convey technique, right? I'm able to teach effectively, but the technique all didn't necessarily come from me. It's years of other people teaching me and showing me how to do things combined with, like I said, video review, watching other people, how they're teaching it and what's effective in the ways that they're teaching and trying to bring that back to the group, right? So, yeah, what helps a lot for me is I had mentioned this I think in the last podcast and before we even started talking today, we have that OLS program, OLS Academy for the paramedics, and we just recently revamped the entire curriculum to be a lot more clinch centric and stand up centric and very similar to what we covered at the C4C Police Jiu-Jitsu program in PEI, because as much as I want some of them to be great at grappling, I think it's more important that they're great at clinch work and maintaining a top position. You know what I mean? Like that's really the focus you want for their profession, especially, right? So we put a big emphasis on that for the first semester this time through. Um, so yeah, a lot of, like I said, video review, and I taught like if you remember, a lot of the ground component was what I covered, right? And that's just years of jujitsu. That wasn't even like I know when we were talking about we're going to show this, this, and this. They're like, Alex, are you good? I'm like, yeah, I know what we're talking about. So it wasn't even there was no video review there. It was just like what's up here and being able to convey it in a way that's going to be effective for the officers present. So yeah,
Yeah, when you were
experience
teaching, it
helps.
felt like it felt we could pick up that it was very natural for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the ground component especially when strikes are involved, is something I feel I'm very comfortable with. So it very simple for me to show like something simple like the tripod sweep or the sickle sweep and why we're doing it and what happens when this doesn't work or how to maybe modify something or some of the more valuable points of a given technique. I think it's just years of experience knowing what works and what doesn't. You know what I mean? So yeah, that goes a long way. So in terms of preparation, I think experience helps a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, but with the repetition that we provided over those several days, Katie, you'll attest that it was very repetitive,
Yeah.
but it was meant to be that way to beat it into your heads because again the certification is to allow you to go back to your agencies or your schools and teach this as opposed to just being an active participant, right? It's you want to be able to you want it so beat into your head that it becomes just second nature to be like, oh, we're doing this, why are we doing this, it gets you comfortable with this, or there's yeah, it goes a long way to help you convey the information back to others when it's that repetitive. So
Drilling jujitsu is so important. Like, I mean, we all want to go into class and like learn something cool, something new, but if you're not drilling it, you're not going to remember it in a live role. So
yeah,
I think, you know, it was very repetitive, but it was like every day was awesome. I enjoyed the entire time I was there.
Yeah.
And I think, I've trained jiu-jitsu and it felt natural for me, but I feel like for the people there that were new to jiu-jitsu or hadn't trained jiu-jitsu, I feel like it's a course that is designed for like even the lower experienced people to really pick it up and understand.
Well, and that's why, like, we build it on pieces, right? Like, we show one piece and then we show this piece, but this piece doesn't work without this, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And we built off of everything throughout the week. And that's why, even some of the people giving feedback on the last few days, they were saying it's like they were surprised that stuff they learned on day one was effective even on day three. And even though it was a different technique, some of the principles and concepts that were taught on day one still held true for what we were trying to convey on day three and day four.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it goes a long way to have that repetition. Like you said, the drilling aspect is important because it almost becomes like a live, not a live drill, but like you said, day one, everyone was kind of stiff and tense, but going hard. But by day 3 and 4, everyone's a little bit tired, but you're getting your reps in almost a more realistic way. Like people are like, you would ask your partner, can you resist a little so I can understand like why this isn't working or what's working here? And I just felt the groups kind of understood the end goal, especially towards the last few days. You know what I mean? They already knew the technique. We'd already done it for 2-3 days. We've already built on it, but they started using the concepts and the techniques from previous days to make sure that day 3 and 4 kind of flowed, I don't know, in a very effective manner. So I was impressed. It was a great group.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Really fun.
And is there like a core curriculum, or is it really just like what are the needs? You know what I mean? Like you guys had a lot of flexibility with what your experience or whatnot. Is there kind of a blueprint, I guess, lack of a better word?
So there is a blueprint for especially those workshops, those 4 days. Like there's a very set out list of technique that we're looking to cover. But I guess I kind of go back to what I was saying about the top ups that each instructor had. So every time a technique was taught, I'd look around, I'd say, like, Matt, do you have any top ups? Like, Sean, do you have any top ups? Ryan, do you have any top ups? And they would all either say yes, like maybe don't forget about putting your hand here or doing this. Or some of them would just say, no, you taught it perfect. I have nothing to add. And it allows us to use each other's experience to build on the technique, cover things that we might not necessarily had thought of, and not stray from the blueprint necessarily, but it goes back to what I said about it's our way, not the way,
Yes.
where this is how I do it. And then actually we had just done this. We had gone together as a group, me and the other instructors. We were talking about one of the techniques, and I said, well, I always put my hand here because of this. And then I remember Matt being like, can you show that to the group? Because he's like, I've not seen that. I think it's a great thing to show, and it can contribute to what we're doing here. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll show it to the group. And so it's not necessarily on the blueprint. It's part of a technique we're already working on, but it's just maybe a small adjustment that lended itself to the group that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have had if the experience wasn't there, right?
Yeah. I think that's amazing too, because I remember like the Women That Fight seminar where you just get these little things that like click for certain people. What you said earlier on in the show about different body sizes, right? What's going to work for one may not work for another. So I really love that you even modified the was it the OLS training?
Yeah.
Just
what are the needs, and so that people can be successful in that. So that's awesome.
That evolution really shows that, we're recognizing, where the need is, as opposed to, well, this is just what we've always taught, and this is going to stay that way. It's like, you got to recognize that some stuff isn't working.
Some stuff is just bullshit.
Yeah, I've done some use of force
stuff.
where it's like, you're just going to bench press somebody and throw them over your, from like if you're mounted. It's like, that is not going to work for me. Like, that's not going to work. So
weak arms.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me either. I get tired too. So it's like, if it's not good technique, doesn't work for many people just to be able to bench press someone off.
Yeah. So
the big dudes, it works just fine. So
yeah, I'm hoping that some of this will be implemented in the training that comes out, and it's good stuff. was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, very positive work environment, work environment. But
Well, yeah,
it is kind of a work environment. So
well, you're investing in your career, right? Your health and
yeah,
everything, so that you can keep doing what you're doing.
yeah, I think it was a very motivating course. I enjoyed it.
It's good. I'm glad. It makes me happy. All the feedback I've heard so far has been very positive. So, um, it's funny because I love constructive criticism. So it's like I would love to hear something negative. It would be nice to be like, oh, like you could do this more or do this less, but I haven't heard anything bad. So it's kind of hard to why fix what's not broken type situation, right? Like if this is working and people are happy with it, then we'll probably continue on, especially when it comes to like the level 1 to level 4 certification. It'll probably continue similar. I'm sure there's little things they'll pick up on and little adjustments here and there. And it's too bad Mike or Chad didn't get to come up. They do have some phenomenal experience to be able to pass off some gems of techniques to everyone. They're great roles too.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
is
yeah,
Chad is Extreme Couture? Is that
yeah,
his?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's the
affiliation.
main gym he teaches at. Yeah, main gym he teaches out of. But he teaches at a lot of different gyms just because of how busy he is with the law enforcement thing. He's really all over the place.
Nice.
Yeah, but Extreme Couture is kind of like his main base because it's based out of Vegas. Mike Bland, I believe, is in Florida, I
Okay.
think. So I could be wrong about that. I don't want to, if he ever listens to this, I don't want to say the wrong place. So I'd have to go double check and look at his Instagram. But great jiu-jitsu too. I don't know if I get the roll with Mike, but I watched him roll and definitely high level black belt. So fun to watch.
I was impressed with this course. Like sometimes I've got a bit of anxiety, but every day I tried to get at least a roll in with someone new. Like I didn't roll with the same person, I don't think, twice the whole 4 days, like during lunch
I don't think I
hours.
did either.
No, I tried to get everybody I could. So it was good.
There's some big dudes there. There was.
Yes.
It would be a little intimidating for you, I
Yeah.
imagine. It
Well,
was.
I had a roll. I can't remember his name, but big dude, like close to 300 pounds big. And
Yeah,
we had a roll, and he stopped at one point, and he said to me, he's like, "Oh, you missed the opportunity there to grab like a leg lock or whatever." And I was like, "Dude, I'm just surviving. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going out with anything fancy here. I am literally like I'm 120 pounds, and you're almost 300 pounds. So
yeah.
I'm just gonna survive." Like,
You don't want his
it's
weight to
not that I
drop on
don't
you.
see those opportunities. It's that it would be stupid for me to go for it.
Because if it goes wrong, that's all
Right.
his weight dropping on your neck or your back, and it's not fun. It's not fun
Yeah.
for anyone.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny because I think he's a white belt. So it was like, dude, it's not that I don't know these things. It's I'm playing a smart game here.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
not
I want to
looking
come out
to.
of this alive.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to be one of the injuries in this 4 days.
Well, you've
So
been doing it for over a decade, so there's a reason.
yeah, yeah. But I thought it was cute that he thought like that I didn't realize that was there. It was like, no, your leg is the size of my torso, so I'm not probably going to attack it.
Yeah,
That wouldn't be smart for
biggest
me.
part of your body against my whole body. It's like
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
yeah, it doesn't.
I'm just going to protect my neck and flow roll and have fun.
That's awesome.
I did a lot of that.
He
It
had a really
was
good attitude, though. He was nice. It was
I
good to
think
give
a
him
lot
that
of them did.
feedback. I don't think he was aware. Like,
Hmm.
I was like, no, like, let me educate you.
Yeah.
Let them know what's up.
Yeah. But everybody was like really respectful. Like, I didn't feel like anyone was being like stupid. It was nice.
No,
Show
no. I
off.
think they all tried to roll with respect. Even myself, it's like you're not looking to smash people. It was more a lot of my roles I just played defensive just to see because especially when they're new roles you hadn't rolled with the person before. It's like what are you bringing to the table here? Like what like and I'm that way because again like you have trained a long time and I want to keep training a long time.
Right.
So I play very defensively sometimes just to be like what are they how hard are they going to go? Right? So you put your guard up and you just kind of almost flow, but flow with a lot of caution,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
just very defensive. Watch out for stupid shit and just make sure, just some basic positions and after that 5 minutes is done, you slap bump and that's it, right?
Yeah.
So it's you don't like you said, you don't want to be injured coming out of that, especially when they're lunchtime rolls. Everyone's already
Yeah.
exhausted, so it's too easy to crank an arm or a leg or something and injure someone. So it's just that's why I wasn't even looking for submissions necessarily. It was more like I just, like you said, it was just a chance to roll with different bodies that you might not have gotten to roll with before. So
Yeah, we get our first roll in.
we did.
Yeah, that's fun.
Very technical, very technical. I tried not to crush you. I'm a little bit heavier than you, so I tried not to just lay on you. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, it was a good roll. It's fun.
it's an easy thing for me to do with some of the bigger guys where I just become a wet blanket and just
Yeah.
let them carry my weight, right? So yeah, but I like a fun technical role. It's we have a few ladies here at Quantum that are not the largest, that's for sure. And it's not that it's unfair. They can handle the pressure. Sometimes if I'm rolling, let's say Sylviane here, one of our black belts, like I have to put pressure on because she's so technically sound that if I want to do anything, it's like I actually have to turn it up a little bit because she might be a buck 10, buck 20. I don't know. She's not huge, but she will choke the hell out of you if she gets the opportunity. So it's like you
Nice.
kind of have to put it on her a bit. Whereas like, yeah, I say that, but at the same time, it's like you also don't just want to crush them with your weight. Like it takes the fun out of the role too, especially when they're 60 70 pounds lighter than you. It's like people will say, well, they're using their flexibility. It's like, yeah, but 70 pounds goes a long way. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of weight for anyone to carry. So yeah, it's you try to be technical and just rather than pressure pass, maybe be a more loose pass side to side, look for like a knee on belly type thing, but like not heavy knee on belly, like almost like you're looking for them to turn away so you can like roll and maybe take the back or just a little bit more flowy, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to smash them. So
Yeah, I like that.
well, you want people to want to roll with you, right? You don't want to be the person who's always going 110%. And there's a time and place for that. Like that type of hard training is definitely important. And I think it makes you a better black belt or a better brown belt or whatever. But if that's your intention every single roll, you're never going to get better. Like if you can't slow it down and be technical and accept the fact that a purple belt or a brown belt catches your leg a little bit, it might catch you in an ankle lock just because you did something stupid. Like, so what? You get tapped. Like, I get tapped all the time, but it's like, it's you, not that I put myself in bad situations, but you got to have some fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got to be willing to get tapped and give up a position or try something new. Like, maybe you're trying a technique that you know might not work 100%, but you're really trying to see if you can get it to work on a variety of different people. You're going to get caught. Like even late stage arm lock escapes. For the longest time, I was working late stage arm lock escapes where I'd let my arm go, but then how do I get out once my arm's extended, right? And then, yeah, I got caught week after week after week. But my late stage arm lock defense is decent now. You know what I mean? Like I might still get caught, but at least I have enough of that sensitivity to know, okay, this is like a do or die situation. What works, what doesn't, and yeah, it's
I think
smart.
with Patrick and I, there was a point to which, like, I'm smaller, so I'm usually get stuck on bottom with bigger people.
Yeah.
And Patrick's judoka, so he's always got the top position, top game. And there was a point in time where our roles were just so stagnant. It was the same thing over and over. And I was like, no, like, we got to start working our weak points. So you're on bottom, I'm on top. And it really improved our game. Like, it was a very apparent change in our skill set after that. So I think if you're practicing jiu-jitsu and you notice like, oh, like I'm always getting this, and this is where I'm successful, you got to start working from your weak points. You got to start working, like it's fun to always win your matches and stuff. But if you're constantly winning with the same thing over and over, like switch it up, start to add more to your toolbox.
Yeah, I tell our big guys, they don't have to be that big, but any heftier dude that's training for the first year or two, fight off your back.
Mm-hmm.
Get used to fighting off your back. Like, yeah, like earn your top position. We already know you know how to be heavy.
Right.
We already know that you can smash someone. We already know that you're strong enough to hold on to someone. So when you get to top, do what you're doing already, but earn the top position. Like improve your technique enough so that you're starting on the bottom, you've earned that top position. And then if you do get rolled while you're on top, you're back to square one and you're used to being there.
Yeah.
It's not a scary thing anymore because you're used to fighting off your back, right? So I know Danaher says that as well. John Danaher is a big proponent of getting people to fight off their back up to blue belt because it you're conceding position and it forces you to develop a guard and earn your top position, right? Because top is dominant because of the weight distribution, right? Like it's so much easier to put your weight on someone. So if you're used to fighting off your back in a disadvantage, like yes, guard has a lot of tricky aspects to it and there's a lot of attacks there, but inherently it's an unfavorable position for what we were talking about earlier with strikes involved, right?
Right.
So the moment strikes are introduced, playing guard isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
So
So true.
Totally fair.
yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
So,
Yeah. I guess one last question. Is this an
yeah,
annual event that you folks put on, the training sessions, or is it, or
they're going to
what's the
try to do it
goal?
annual. It might not always be on the East Coast. Like maybe it's in Ontario again, or maybe it'll be West Coast next time.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what the plan is for where they're going to do it. Usually it's one or two people that start the ball rolling. So I know Jason Murray at a PEI was a big push for getting this started because he had reached out to me. He's like, I'm having a hard time getting a hold of Chad. So I messaged Chad. Chad and Jason linked up, and then they were able to start organizing to get this off the ground.
Okay.
And it was very similar out in Ontario. The three guys that were with us in PEI, Matt and Sean and Ryan, um, they were big proponents as to why it even came to Canada to begin with, because they've been doing courses with Chad down in the States before this had even kicked off. So, because it was very popular down in the States, they do one almost every month down there in a different state.
Oh wow.
It's yeah, it's pretty frequent that they'll jump around month to month. You can actually go to the C4C Police Jiu-Jitsu website and see all the different spots where they're doing the trainings. So if you ever wanted to go through it again, you could always go down to the States and go through the course again if you wanted to, right? Or
Cool.
send people down. So, but yeah, I think they want to bring it back up to Canada. It's probably once a year, but we don't know where.
Okay. And would the goal eventually be to kind of have across the provinces, maybe like West Coast, East Coast, like Central, like just as it kind of the groups
Uh,
get larger and larger?
if we could do it monthly, I would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could get the law enforcement agencies to commit to some type of funding to do it monthly, I would be on board.
Nice.
It's just to get them there to support it, right? Or even to get them, and a lot of it, like you heard when we were there, Katie, it's they pushed for just get in the gym and train. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Like, yes, this course is great. Yes, it's important to learn all these things we're teaching, but you're going to learn a lot of really important things just by training jujitsu.
Yeah.
Just get in there and do it.
Yeah.
Like
One of the
it's
fellows I work with, he trains jiu-jitsu. I think he and I are the only two at our workplace. And when I came back, he was just like, tell me what you learned. Tell me what you learned. But yeah, it's hard to get other people somewhat on board. But level 5, is that more of like the extraction based?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to
So
check
and
that
more
out.
weapons training. Yeah, a lot more weapons training too. So that
Nice.
would be fun. I think I would have to go to the States to try to get level 5 certified. I don't know if they'll ever bring that level of certification up here. We'll
Okay.
have to see. I think it's possible. I think it would just you need
Road
the
trip?
demand, right? I'm totally down. If we can get a
That'd be
level
so
5,
cool.
I'd totally be down. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it. Especially if it's a main or something. I think it makes it a lot easier, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah,
That's awesome.
that'd be
yeah,
deadly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you being back on the show. It was awesome to hear both of your stories about what went well. And I'm excited. I know that I still so far away from that, but it'd be cool knowing that there are non-law enforcement officers that would attend these trainings.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a
yeah.
lot of it that not less necessarily like the tips and tricks for the law enforcement, but there's a lot of tips and tricks just jiu-jitsu based that I'll incorporate in my classes.
Nice.
You'll get to check it out for sure.
Awesome.
So
You'll be all right. You'll figure it out. There are some white belts there even at the event, so you're not far behind as long as you're training. And that's what we were saying. Just train. Just if you're training, you're getting something, right? And it's something is better than nothing at all. So do jujitsu.
Yes.
yeah,
Agree.
Yeah.
do jiu-jitsu. I like it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy
Thank
the rest of
you.
your weekend.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Talk to you later.